If you're in your 60s, 70s, or even your 80s and no longer having sex, I need to tell you something that might surprise you. This isn't just about pleasure, it's about your heart, your brain, your connection to life itself. And if no one else has said it to you, then let me be the first. Giving up on intimacy might be silently stealing your health, your vitality, and even your sense of purpose. I'm Dr. James. I've spent over 30 years helping men and women reclaim their well-being after 60. And I've seen what happens when we stop treating sex as a luxury and start seeing it as a vital part of aging well. You might think it's too late for me, or that part of my life is over. But the truth is, there are 4 specific consequences. Real, physical, emotional consequences that begin when intimacy disappears. And most people don't hear about them until it's too late. But here's the good news. It's never too late to reignite that part of you. In this video, I'll show you how. And in just a moment, we'll start with the most surprising risk of all. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do that now and tap the bell icon so you won't miss future videos designed to help you live stronger, longer, and more connected. And if this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to help me understand how I can better support your journey. Now, let's talk about the first and perhaps most overlooked consequence of losing intimacy after 60. How it quietly begins to affect your brain, your memory, and the way you feel about life itself. 1. Your brain begins to age faster than it should. I still remember a patient I saw years ago, George, 72 years old, a retired math teacher. He came into my office complaining of forgetfulness. Names slipped his mind. He had trouble focusing. And he said, "Doc, I just don't feel sharp anymore." At first glance, nothing was obviously wrong. No signs of dementia, no underlying illness. But after a few honest conversations, George told me something that stood out. Since his wife passed away, he hadn't been sexually active, not even once, in nearly 5 years. Now, it's easy to dismiss that detail. Many people do. But here's what science tells us, and what I've seen again and again in my years of practice. When sexual intimacy disappears, the brain begins to lose one of its most powerful sources of stimulation. You see, sexual activity increases blood flow to the brain, especially in areas tied to memory, emotion, and learning. It triggers the release of dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, natural chemicals that boost mood, reduce stress, and actually protect your brain from aging. Without that stimulation, without that release, your brain can start to slow down. Focus fades, energy drops, and most importantly, the risk of cognitive decline and even early dementia begins to rise. I'm not saying sex is a miracle cure, but when it's absent for months or even years, your brain misses out on a deeply human experience that fuels vitality. It's not about performance or youth, it's about connection. Intimacy of any kind, whether it's touch, closeness, or sexual expression, helps keep the mind engaged in the emotional circuits active. Without it, people often begin to withdraw. They become less social, less curious, and sometimes even less motivated to take care of themselves. That slow fading isn't just emotional, it's neurological. And that's why I take this so seriously, because once that decline sets in, it's hard to reverse. But with the right steps, you can absolutely keep your brain active, alert, and emotionally alive well into your 80s and beyond. Now, while the brain often shows the earliest signs of sexual disconnection, the body doesn't stay silent for long either. In fact, there's something that starts happening inside your physical health. Something far more visible and possibly more dangerous that most people completely overlook. Let's talk about what happens to your circulation, your strength, and your hormones when sex quietly disappears from your life. 2. Your body loses vital circulation and hormonal balance. I remember sitting with a couple, Linda and Carl, both in their late 60s. They'd been married nearly 40 years, but over the past 5, their physical connection had slowly faded. "We just assumed that part of life was over," Linda said gently, almost apologetically. Carl nodded, but admitted he didn't feel like himself anymore. His energy was low, he'd lost muscle, gained weight, and said he felt older than his age. When we looked deeper, one thing stood out. Their intimacy had gone completely silent. It's something I see far too often. When sexual activity disappears, especially after 60, your body begins to lose its natural rhythm. The cardiovascular boost that comes with arousal and physical touch fades. Circulation slows. Blood vessels become less responsive, and oxygen delivery to key organs, including the heart and brain, diminishes. Sex isn't just about pleasure. It's a form of exercise, one that promotes blood flow, increases lung capacity, and supports a stronger heart. When it stops, the body notices. But perhaps even more critical is what happens hormonally. In both men and women, sexual activity plays a vital role in regulating hormones. Testosterone levels in men can plummet without stimulation, leading to fatigue, weight gain, irritability, and even depression. For women, estrogen and oxytocin drop, which can increase the risk of osteoporosis, joint pain, and mood swings. These aren't just minor inconveniences. They can affect mobility, independence, and long-term health. What concerns me most is how quietly these changes occur. You don't wake up one morning and feel dramatically different. It creeps in. You walk a little slower. You stop going to the gym. You sleep poorly, gain weight, and begin to assume it's all just normal aging. But the truth is, much of it could be the direct result of physical disconnection and a lack of sexual stimulation. Here's something most people don't realize. You don't have to engage in intercourse to feel the benefits. Gentle touch, physical closeness, even emotional intimacy can reactivate those hormonal pathways. It's not about performance, it's about presence. And the longer you go without it, the harder it becomes to bring your body back to balance. But as dangerous as those physical changes can be, they still don't touch the deepest loss of all. Because when intimacy fades, it's not just your body that feels it. It's your identity, your connection, your sense of worth. And for many older adults, that silent pain runs far deeper than they ever admit. Let's talk about what happens to your relationship and yourself when sex quietly disappears. 3. Your relationship and self-worth may quietly suffer. There's a kind of silence I see too often in couples who've been together for decades. A silence that lives between them, not loud or angry, but heavy. I once sat with a woman named Margaret, 74 years old, whose husband had survived cancer. The treatments had taken a toll, and in the process, they'd stopped being intimate. She looked at me and said, "I don't want him to feel pressured, but I also miss being touched." Her eyes welled up as she whispered, "I miss feeling like someone's partner, not just their caregiver." That quiet distance, emotional, physical, unspoken, can slowly unravel the fabric of even the strongest relationships. When intimacy fades, even for understandable reasons, we often stop reaching out, stop initiating, stop believing we are still desirable. What's left is a strange kind of loneliness. Not just being alone, but feeling unseen in the presence of someone who once knew you better than anyone else. Over time, that loneliness can harden into resentment, shame, or deep insecurity. One partner might assume the other has lost interest. The other might feel guilt or fear or frustration, but most don't talk about it. They simply adapt. And slowly, what was once vibrant becomes mechanical. Two good people living together, but no longer fully connected. And if you're single, this applies just as deeply. When we stop believing we're worthy of physical or emotional closeness, we begin to shrink, not just in desire, but in identity. We lose a piece of ourselves that craves to be wanted, to be held, to feel like we still matter as a whole person. That erosion of self-worth may not show up in blood tests, but it can take years off your life and joy from your days. What concerns me most is how invisible this damage is. You can be surrounded by family and still feel emotionally starved. You can be a loving spouse and still feel undesired. And over time, that emptiness can lead to depression, anxiety, withdrawal, and in some cases, even serious health decline. because the human heart wasn't built to live without connection. But here's the most powerful truth I can share. It doesn't have to stay this way. Even the smallest steps toward affection, openness, and vulnerability can rebuild bridges. I've watched couples in their 70s laugh again, flirt again, fall in love all over again. Not because their bodies were perfect, but because they dared to reach for each other again. Still, for all the emotional weight this carries, the next consequence might be the most serious of all. Because when intimacy disappears, it's not just your brain, your body, or your heart at risk. It may actually shorten the number of years you have left. Let me show you what the science says. 4. You may be shortening your life without knowing it. I once cared for a man named Robert. He was 81, proud, independent, and still sharp as a tack. But what struck me most wasn't his blood pressure or his heart health. It was how alive he seemed compared to others his age. When I asked what he thought kept him going, he smiled and said, "I still flirt with my wife every morning. We hold each other every night, and sometimes," he chuckled, "we still make love." It wasn't about the act. It was about the connection, the spark, the joy that came from feeling fully human. What Robert knew, maybe without realizing it, was something science has proven again and again. Regular sexual intimacy in any form is associated with longer life. I'm not talking about extreme activity or youth-driven expectations. I'm talking about real consistent closeness, touch, affection, arousal. These release powerful chemicals like oxytocin and endorphins that reduce inflammation, lower blood pressure, and strengthen your heart. In fact, one study from the British Medical Journal found that older adults who maintained a regular sex life had significantly lower mortality rates. That's not opinion, that's data. Physical affection isn't just comforting, it's life-giving. It improves sleep, sharpens immunity, lowers stress hormones like cortisol, and gives your nervous system the reset it desperately needs as you age. But when that intimacy disappears, the body slowly starts to shift. Stress levels stay high, sleep gets shallow, the immune system weakens. You feel more anxious, more isolated, and less motivated to move or socialize. These aren't just emotional effects. They have measurable consequences for your health, and yes, even your lifespan. Too many people accept this decline as just getting older, but in truth, it often begins with disconnection. Your body was built to thrive on closeness. When you deprive it of that, whether by choice, habit, or circumstance, you quietly increase your risk of chronic illness, depression, and premature death. That may sound harsh, but it's a truth I've seen unfold in far too many lives. But there's something else I've seen, something just as powerful. I've watched people in their 70s and 80s regain that connection and literally transform. Not just how they feel, but how they live. That spark is still in you, even if it's been buried under years of silence or self-doubt. Which brings me to the most important message of all, the one too many people never hear. No matter how long it's been or how far away intimacy feels right now, you can bring it back. Let me show you how to begin, because it's never too late to start again. 5. It's never too late to start again. I'll never forget a woman named Eleanor. She was 78 when she came to see me. Sharp-minded, beautifully composed, but her voice cracked as she said, "I miss feeling like a woman. Not someone's grandmother, not someone's patient. Just a woman." It had been nearly a decade since she had felt any kind of physical affection, and she confessed she had come to believe that part of her life was simply over. But what she didn't know, and what I see every day, is that the human spirit has an incredible ability to reawaken no matter how long it's been. Whether you're 60 or 90, whether it's been months or years, the truth is this: as long as you're alive, intimacy is still possible. Desire may change with age, and your body may not respond the way it once did, but connection, real, nourishing, meaningful connection, never expires. Rebuilding intimacy doesn't have to begin with grand gestures or physical acts. Sometimes it starts with a conversation, a handheld, a laugh shared. Even the smallest steps, eye contact, vulnerability, a simple "I miss you," can reopen doors that you thought were shut for good. For couples who've drifted, that first step back can feel awkward, even scary. But every time I've seen someone take it, they come out the other side lighter, more alive, and closer than they've been in years. And if you're single or widowed, or simply alone right now, don't think this message isn't for you. Reconnection can begin with yourself. Your body is still worthy of care. Your heart still has space for touch, joy, and companionship. Whether through therapeutic touch, deep friendships, or even opening yourself to future love, the path is still open. The question isn't, can I get it back? The question is, am I willing to try? I've worked with countless people who assumed their time had passed. Some were dealing with illness, others with shame, fear, or years of distance. But when they gave themselves permission to try, without pressure, without expectation, something inside them lit up. Their energy changed, their health improved, and more than anything, they started to feel like themselves again. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. Your story isn't finished yet, and your next chapter might be the most fulfilling of all. So now the question becomes, if you knew that one small step could bring back vitality, joy, and deeper connection, what would stop you from taking it? Let's close with the truth I hope you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. 6. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you not just for watching or listening, but for being open, because this conversation isn't always easy. Talking about sex, connection, or aging can bring up discomfort, regret, even grief. But if there's one truth I've learned in my decades of working with older adults, it's this. The desire to feel alive, to feel close, to feel seen, it never leaves us. It just gets buried under layers of time, loss, and silence. We've talked about how your brain starts to age faster when intimacy fades, how your circulation and hormones begin to weaken, how relationships suffer quietly, and how, believe it or not, your very life expectancy can be affected. These aren't small side effects. They're real, measurable, life-altering changes. And yet, there's a powerful thread running through each of these risks. They're not final. I've watched people reconnect after decades of distance. I've seen widows and widowers rediscover love in their 70s. I've helped men regain confidence after thinking they'd lost it for good. I've seen women realize that they are still beautiful, still desirable, still worthy of tenderness. And you know what all these people had in common? They gave themselves permission to begin again. This isn't about trying to turn back time. It's about reclaiming what still belongs to you. Intimacy, joy, human connection. Those things aren't reserved for the young. In fact, I believe they matter even more as we age, because they nourish the soul just as much as they support the body. So, wherever you are in your journey, whether you're in a loving marriage, a strained one on your own, or somewhere in between, I hope this message reminded you that your story isn't over. There's still time for laughter, for healing, for closeness. And if something inside you is whispering, maybe I could try, I hope you listen to it. You don't need to fix everything overnight. You don't need to know exactly what to do next. You just need to take one step. Maybe that's a conversation. Maybe it's a touch. Maybe it's allowing yourself to hope again because you are not done, not even close. And if no one's told you lately, you deserve to feel alive, desired, and connected. Not someday, not in memory. Now, let this be the beginning of something new. Your best chapter might still be waiting to be written. If this message touched you in any way, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and leave a comment below. Whether it's a one to say it resonated with you or a story of your own, your voice matters, and you never know who your words might help.